I still remember the way she stood in front of my buka that morning, crying like someone whose heart had been thrown inside fire. People were looking at her. Some were already shaking their heads. I even heard one man whisper that something serious must have happened. But what made everybody hold their breath was the small nylon bag she was holding. It was my own change inside it. And when she said her husband accused her of stealing because of that same money, everywhere became silent as if the whole world stopped. Before that morning, I did not know that one small mistake from my hand would bring a woman to tears. I did not know that a simple extra change could scatter somebody's night. I did not know that a peaceful home could shake because of money that was not even enough for one pot of soup. But let me tell the story well, from the beginning, so you will understand how everything started and why that woman's tears still follow me till today. The previous day had been one of those market days when everything is upside down. My buka beside the junction was full like church on Easter Sunday. People were rushing. Some were shouting that their food had not come. Some were dragging chairs. The smoke from the fire was mixing with the smell of pepper soup and ogbono. I was holding 2 plates in one hand and counting money with the other. You know how buka life is. If you do not use your eyes like camera, you will make mistake. I remember the woman clearly. Fine woman, quiet, the type that does not talk unless she needs to. She ordered rice and stew. Nothing big. When she finished eating, she paid and waited for her change. That was when the mistake happened. I counted the money too fast. I did not even look twice. I pushed it into her hand and turned to the next customer that was already shouting my name. She nodded and walked away. I did not think about it again. That's how buka works. You move to the next person. Now, let me tell you something. Sometimes life hides trouble inside places you cannot see. You may give someone nylon. You do not know that inside that nylon is what will make that person kneel down in front of a husband who no longer believes anything she says. You do not know that the money you gave her is what will cause her to cry the whole night. You think you just gave change, but destiny can twist small things into big fire. So when I saw her that next morning, standing with red eyes and holding the money I gave her by mistake, my heart cut small. I was still arranging my pot of stew when she walked to me and dropped the nylon on my table. Her hand was shaking. Her voice was weak. And before she even explained anything, I could see that she had cried until her eyes were tired. That was how the story started. I gave her too much change. She carried it home, and her home did not remain the same. I looked at the woman standing there with swollen eyes, and my heart started beating fast because I knew the crying was not small crying. This was the type of crying someone cries when something heavy has pressed their chest through the night. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, but the tears still found their way out. People in the buka were already watching us. Some stopped eating. Some turned their chairs. Even the man frying puff-puff beside my place stopped turning his spoon. I moved closer to her and told her to sit. She sat slowly like someone who carried shame inside her bones. I pushed the nylon back to her hand and asked what happened. That was when she opened her mouth, and the story she told me carried the kind of pain that entered my ears and refused to leave. She said she reached home the previous night, tired but happy that she had eaten well. She dropped her bag on the chair and entered the kitchen to warm the leftover soup. Her husband, who had not been working for months, walked into the room where her bag was. He opened the bag, maybe to check if she bought something for the house, and saw the extra 3,000 naira sitting inside her wrapper pocket. She said everything changed from that moment. The man that used to joke with her suddenly became someone else. She said he called her from the kitchen with a voice that did not sound like him. She entered the room and saw the money spread on the bed. She told me his eyes were red, not from crying, but from anger that had already found a home in his heart. Before she could even explain that it was extra change from my buka, he started accusing her. He said she must have gotten the money from somewhere she was hiding from him. He said no one gives anybody free money. He said a married woman cannot come home with extra cash unless she did something she cannot say with her mouth. She said she begged him to calm down. She said she tried to talk small, but he did not hear anything. He shouted. He pushed the chair. He hit the cupboard until the handle fell off. Their little boy woke up and started crying, but the man did not stop. He asked her to kneel down and swear that she did not collect the money from another man. She refused to kneel. She said she could swear with her mouth, but she would not kneel for something she did not do. He got angrier. He told her to carry the money back to wherever she got it from before daybreak. She said she did not sleep that night. She sat by the window till morning, watching the sky change from black to blue. She waited for the street to wake up. Then she walked all the way to my buka with the nylon in her hand. When she finished talking, everywhere in my buka was quiet. You could hear plate and spoon touching each other. Some people looked at her with pity. Some looked at me like they expected me to fix her marriage with my two hands. But all I knew at that moment was that the mistake from my hand travelled into somebody's home and brought tears. I looked at her face again, and I knew this was not a story I could leave like that. This matter was bigger than change. It was about a woman who slept beside a man but felt alone in her own house. It was about a husband who allowed life to beat him until he started beating others with his words. It was about a family that was slowly bending under the weight of things they were not saying to each other. Right there, I decided that this story would not end inside my buka. I stood up, tied my wrapper well, and told myself that I must follow this woman home. That was when the real journey of that day began. I held the edge of my table and thought about everything the woman said. The fear in her eyes was not the fear of someone lying. It was the fear of someone who no longer knew what her own home would do to her. I looked around the buka and saw people still watching us. Some were whispering. Some looked angry on her behalf. Some looked confused. But me, I already knew what I wanted to do. I told one of my girls to watch the pots. I washed my hands quickly, tied my wrapper tighter so it would not open on the road, and told the woman to stand up. She wiped her face again, held the nylon close to her chest, and followed me out of the buka. The sun was already bright, but the air still carried small morning cold. As we walked, I kept looking at her from the corner of my eye. I wanted to understand how a quiet woman like her ended up carrying this type of secret pain on her shoulder. We did not talk much on the way. She would point left or right when we needed to turn. I noticed that she walked like someone who used to hurry, but now no longer had strength to rush for anything. Her slippers made slow sound on the sand. The road to her house was not too far, but the walk felt long because of the heavy silence between us. I used the silence to think about the man we were going to meet. I did not know him, but I knew men who carried shame like fire inside their pockets. When life starts beating, they look for who to beat to. We turned into a small street where the houses were close to each other like siblings sharing one cloth. Children were running around with school bags. A woman was sweeping in front of her door. A man was repairing his bicycle under the mango tree. Normal morning things. But as we got close to the woman's house, she slowed down. Her steps became smaller. Her breathing changed. That was when I understood that she was not only afraid of facing her husband, she was afraid of what he might do when he sees me beside her. Her house was a small one-room place with a wooden door that had been repaired many times. The woman stopped in front of it and pressed her hand on the wall like she needed support. She tried to talk, but her voice came out as whisper. I held her arm gently and told her to breathe. She nodded, swallowed hard, and pushed the door open. Inside the room, her husband was sitting on a stool. His face looked stubborn at first, like someone who had already prepared himself to continue the fight of last night. But when he saw me, his eyes shifted. He tried to adjust his shirt. He tried to act like he was not surprised. Then his eyes moved to the nylon in his wife's hand, and something in him changed slightly. Just small, like a crack on dry ground before rain. I stepped forward and greeted him calmly. He answered with a voice that sounded forced. The woman stood behind me like someone hiding from rain. The room was tight. You could smell kerosene and old clothes. Their little boy was sitting on the bed, watching us with wide eyes. I started talking before the man could say anything else that would scatter the moment. I told him who I was. I told him how busy my buka had been. I told him that the extra change was my mistake, not his wife's secret. As I spoke, his face changed again. His shoulders dropped a little. He swallowed his pride slowly, the way a man swallows dry aba when there is no water. The woman stood still. She did not move. She did not speak. She just listened, hoping the truth would protect her this time. And me, I stood there telling the man everything, praying inside my heart that the story would enter his ear and soften something in him. For the first time since I entered the room, the man finally closed his eyes and breathed out, long and deep, like someone whose chest had been tied all night and was just being released. That was when I knew that this visit would change something in this house, whether small or big. The man opened his eyes slowly, and something in his face had shifted. It was not peace, but it was not anger anymore. It was the face of someone who knew he had done wrong, but did not know how to step down from the high place his pride had carried him. His wife stood behind me like a shadow, still holding the nylon, still hoping the truth would be enough to calm the storm inside her house. I moved closer, not too much, just enough for him to understand that I was not there to fight him. I told him again that the mistake was mine. I told him that nobody gave his wife money. I told him she did not do anything wrong. As I spoke, I saw his jaw tighten and loosen, tighten again, then loosen once more. His fingers were tapping his knee. His eyes kept moving from me to his wife and back to the money. The little boy on the bed started playing with the edge of his mother's wrapper. He did not understand anything that was happening, but he could feel the heavy air in the room. Children always know. They may not talk, but they know when something is wrong between their parents. That thought made my heart pinch small. The man finally stood up from the stool. His movement was slow, like he was carrying something heavy on his back. He looked at me properly for the first time. Then he looked at his wife. Her eyes dropped immediately, the way someone drops their eyes when they are used to waiting for trouble. He asked her how much I gave her. She told him. His face squeezed slightly, not in anger, but in realization that the whole fight of last night had been over money that could not even buy them a bag of rice. He sat back down, this time with his head in his hands. His back rose and fell as he breathed. The room was silent except for the sound of his breathing and the small clinking sound coming from the little boy playing with a spoon. After some time, he lifted his head. His eyes were wet, but he refused to let the tears fall. I could see the shame sitting inside those eyes. Not shame for his wife, but shame for himself. Shame for the way he handled the situation. Shame for the anger he allowed to build inside him. Shame for the emptiness in his pockets and the fear that he was losing his place as the man of the house. He told me that things had been hard for him. He said he had been looking for work for months. He said every time he thought about responsibilities he could not meet, something inside him tightened like rope. He said when he saw the money in his wife's bag, the voice in his head told him she no longer respected him. He said he did not want to believe it, but the voice was louder than her explanations. His wife started crying again, quietly this time. She stood with her hands pressed together in front of her, shaking as if her body wanted to disappear. She told him she had never hidden anything from him. She told him the home they built together was the only place she wanted to be. She told him she did not understand why he would believe that she could betray him. Her voice cracked at the end, and that was what finally broke the man. A small sound escaped his mouth, a sound like someone trying not to cry but failing. He stood up and walked to her slowly. He touched her arm like he was touching something delicate. Then he pulled her close and held her tight. She dropped her head on his shoulder and cried harder. I stood there watching them, feeling both relieved and sad at the same time. Relieved because the truth had entered the house. Sad because I could see how much both of them had suffered alone. Marriage can be a quiet battlefield. Sometimes the wounds do not show on the skin. They hide inside words, inside silence, inside nights when two people sleep side by side but far from each other. When they finally separated from the hug, the man faced me. His voice was small when he thanked me. He said if I had not followed his wife home, he might have lost his family without knowing how it happened. He took the nylon from her hand, pressed it back into mine, and told me to forgive him for everything. I looked at them both and knew this story had entered a new place. Something had broken, but something else had also started to heal. I just did not know yet how far the healing would go or what it would cost them. But I knew one thing: that house would not remain the same again. I stepped out of their room slowly, giving them space to breathe. The air outside felt different from the heavy one inside. It carried small breeze and the smell of someone frying akara down the street. The woman followed me out, wiping her eyes with the edge of her wrapper. Her husband stayed inside for a moment, maybe to gather himself, maybe to hide the tears he did not want anyone to see. When he finally stepped out, he looked like someone who had fought a long battle within himself and was now too tired to pretend. He stood beside his wife, not touching her yet, but close enough for her to feel that he was not her enemy anymore. The morning sun touched his face, and for the first time since I entered their house, I saw softness instead of fire. I started walking back toward my buka, and they walked with me. The road felt longer this time, not because of distance, but because of the quiet between us. Not the heavy quiet from before, but the kind that comes when people are trying to rebuild something that had almost broken completely. The little boy ran ahead of us, chasing a lizard, laughing as if he no longer felt the fear that had filled the house the night before. Children forget quickly, but their hearts hold memory in small corners. When we got close to the junction, the man stopped walking. He looked at his wife, then at me. He told her he was sorry again. He told her he would try to listen better. He told her he would not let fear sit in his heart and control him again. His voice was steady this time. The words were simple, but they carried weight. His wife nodded with tears on her cheeks, but they were not the same tears from before. These ones were lighter. He turned to me and thanked me once more. I nodded and told him that everybody makes mistakes, but what matters is how we fix them. He looked down at his feet and rubbed his palms together. He said he would find something to do, even if it was small work, to take pressure off the house. I could see determination forming inside him, like a seed ready to grow. They turned back toward their street while I walked to my buka. When I entered, my customers looked at me with wide eyes, waiting for gist. I did not give them any. Some stories are not for public entertainment. Some pains are not for people to laugh about over plates of rice. I went straight to my pot of stew and started stirring it, but my mind stayed with that couple. Later that afternoon, when the sun was high and my buka was full again, I saw the woman pass by with her little boy. She stopped in front of my place and greeted me with a small smile. Not a big smile, not a loud one, just the kind that says thank you without using words. I nodded back at her. She held her boy's hand tighter and continued walking. Days passed, then weeks. I heard small rumours that the man had gotten work at a car wash near the next junction. It was not big money, but it was something to start with. People said he had changed, that he talked softer now, that he walked his boy to school sometimes. The woman came to my buka once in a while, not always to eat, but sometimes just to greet. She walked differently now. Her steps had confidence inside them again. Each time I saw her, I remembered how she stood crying in front of my buka that morning with the nylon in her hand. I remembered how my simple mistake entered her home and brought out things she had been holding for too long. I also remembered how truth entered that same house and pushed the darkness aside. In this life, trouble can hide inside small things. Extra change, wrong words, silent nights. One misunderstanding can open doors nobody planned to open. But the same way trouble enters a house through small things, healing can enter too. Through honesty, through courage, through quiet steps taken early in the morning when the world is still waking up. I still count money with care now. I still double-check change before I give it out. Not because I fear losing money, but because I know small mistakes can travel far. And anytime I think about that day, I tell myself something that life has taught me over and over. People carry battles you cannot see. And sometimes all it takes to change their story is someone willing to walk a small road with them.